um, DPCS episode, The Simulacrum of Giving a Fuck into DPCS office, late night. The office looks like a support forum had a nervous breakdown in a skip. CRT monitors hum with low-level menace. A printer spits out half a page and then gives up on life. The kettle is making a noise that suggests internal suffering. Marmite is hunched over a transcript, cigarette welded to his lip, one paw massaging his temple like he's trying to physically push the stupidity back into the universe. A long drag. He squints at the page. Another drag. Then Marmite. Right. So, tonight's episode is about AI, empathy, trauma, peer support, authenticity, and whether humans have finally become so emotionally constipated they need a predictive text engine to tell each other that sounds hard. And let me tell you, this transcript is a fucking masterpiece of modern unease. Not because anyone's evil, not because anyone's thick, but because this is what happens when two traumatized, intelligent blokes try to discuss ethics in a collapsing society while also being catastrophically online. Marmite flicks ash into a mug that definitely says world's best counselor. Marmite. So, you've got Lewis over here saying, these groups are for human connection, not point scoring, not advice vending, not robotic empathy generated by Skynet's needy nephew. Which, for once, is not only correct, it's actually very fucking correct. And then you've got Lee, who's basically saying, yeah, but if the AI writes what I would have written anyway, what's the difference? And that right there, is the question that's going to haunt this century like a ghost in a LinkedIn profile. Marmite looks directly into camera. Marmite. Because on one level, I get it. If a machine produces the same words, same tone, same apparent kindness, same sorry you're going through this, mate energy, then what's the difference? Well, I'll tell you what the fucking difference is. One of them is a person carrying pain in their nervous system. The other is a probability engine with the spiritual depth of a microwave. He points at the transcript with a cigarette. Marmite. And that's the whole rotten heart of it. Humans have become so starved of real care that they're now asking, does it matter if the empathy is real as long as it sounds right? Jesus Christ, that's not a technological question, that's a civilizational emergency. Marmite scrolls down. Marmite. Lewis says AI understands tone, not empathy. Correct. Lee says more or less, yeah, but I blend it with my own thoughts. Also understandable. And that's where this gets properly slippery, because this isn't really about some cartoon version of a man firing AI replies like a t-shirt cannon into a trauma forum. It's messier than that. It's a man using a machine to help him process and frame responses in a place where people are desperate to feel less alone, which means the real question isn't, is AI bad? The real question is, at what point does assisted expression become counterfeit presence? Marmite pauses. Takes a drag, exhales like he's trying to smoke out the entire digital age. Marmite. And the answer, obviously, is when the tool starts replacing the emotional labor rather than supporting it, there's your fucking thesis. If you write your own response, then audit it with AI. Fine. That's a tool. That's grammar with ambition. That's reflective assistance. But if you get the machine to generate the emotional core, and then you just tidy it up like you're polishing a sympathy sausage roll, you're not connecting, you're curating the appearance of connection, and those are not the same thing. Not morally, not psychologically, not spiritually, not in any meaningful fucking way. Marmite gets up and starts pacing. Marmite. Now, to be fair to Lee, he's not saying, let the machine become God. He's not saying, replace therapists with a toaster full of algorithms. He's testing the water. He's asking where this goes in 10 years. Will AI one day pass as a therapist? Will it become indistinguishable? Will people know the difference? And the grim answer is, probably less and less. That's the problem. Not because it'll become truly empathic, but because humans are already being trained to accept the simulation of care as if that's good enough. Which, incidentally, is the exact sort of bleak hellscape I'd expect from a species that invented customer service chatbots and then wondered why everyone feels spiritually homeless. He stares at the transcript again. Marmite. And Lewis, to his credit, is making a point that's much better than the one he's emotionally mangling. He's saying these groups rely on trust. Peer support means actual peers. If you're using AI and not being honest about it, it's disingenuous. Again, correct, because peer support is not just information exchange. It's not a fucking FAQ with feelings. It's relational. It's about the fact another human being has sat in the dark and still found the strength to type, "Yeah, me too." That's what matters. Not because the sentence is magically profound, but because someone actually had to mean it. Marmite leans over the desk. Marmite. And that's why this whole thing is such a bastard, because AI can imitate the sentence. Beautifully. Sometimes more clearly than the human can, sometimes more gently, sometimes more persuasively. But what it can't do is stake itself in the interaction. It risks nothing, it feels nothing, it has no history, no dread, no body, no shame, no night terrors, no X-ringing at 2 a.m., no memory of watching someone self-destruct in real time. No guts on the line. And if none of that is present, then however elegant the sentence is, something fundamental is missing. He taps the desk 3 times. Marmite, presence, that's the word. Presence. Not polish, not best practice, not emotionally fluent admin. Presence. And humans are in real danger of confusing one for the other because we've all become so exhausted that anything sounding vaguely kind now gets treated like nourishment. He mutters to himself. Marmite, bleak. Proper bleak. Marmite sits back down. Marmite. Now, where it gets extra spicy is when Louis starts talking about his own use of AI, which is brilliant because nothing spices up a moral argument like, yes, but I did use it once to stop myself from going completely off the fucking rails. And to be fair, that part's real. Messy, compromised, human, real. He's not pretending he's pure. He's saying, I used the thing. It helped me organize my thoughts. It helped me survive a moment. But I know how dangerous this territory is. Which is more honest than most people ever get around these tools. Because that's the truth, isn't it? These systems can be useful. They can help structure chaos. They can reflect language back. They can clarify. They can assist with wording. They can help you not send a text that sounds like it was written by a hand grenade. But they can also become a hall of mirrors where you stop knowing whether you're being understood or merely modeled. And once you're traumatized enough, that distinction can get very fucking dangerous. Marmite jabs the screen again. Marmite. And that's what Lewis is trying to explain when he starts going on about AI psychosis, hallucination, language systems overuse, building frameworks, nearly losing the plot, writing a whole book about the ethics of simulated care, which is a very DPCS sentence, to be fair. He's basically saying, I've stared into this machine long enough to know it can support you without ever truly holding you. And that is a cracking sentence. Someone write that down. Actually don't. I just did. The printer coughs out another sheet and dies again. Marmite glares at it. Marmite. But credit where it's due, Lee's not being thick either. He's making a real point. He's saying, if I've spent years in these groups, if I know the patterns, if I'm blending AI with my own experience, if moderators aren't removing it, if people respond positively, then isn't that evidence it's helping? And unfortunately, that's not a stupid argument, because outcomes do matter. If people feel heard, if the response is useful, if it de-escalates distress, if it helps someone think more clearly, so that does matter. The problem is it doesn't settle the ethical question, because a counterfeit tenner can still buy a sandwich. That doesn't make it real money. He pauses. Marmite. That might actually be the line of the episode. A counterfeit tenner can still buy a sandwich. Lovely, dark, useful, economically relevant. Marmite opens another page. Marmite. And this is where the whole thing moves from interesting to tragic, because underneath the AI debate, what they're actually talking about is who gets to speak, who gets to help, who gets to mediate pain, and what counts as genuine care in a world where people are increasingly alienated from each other. That's the real fight. Not Is AI good like some GCSE debate club shite? The real fight is whether modern life has become so transactional, so abstract, so emotionally depleted that people are willing to accept simulated intimacy as functionally equivalent to the real thing. And if they are, what the fuck happens to friendship, to therapy, to art, to trust, to grief, to witness? He lights another cigarette off the previous one. Marmite. Because Louis is right about one massive thing, some spaces exist specifically because human beings need to know another actual person was there. Not a machine, not a brand, not a wellness funnel, a person. Flawed, tired, messy, inconsistent, probably half-skint, but real. And if you quietly automate your side of that exchange, you may still produce something useful. But you've altered the moral contract, whether you mean to or not. Marmite narrows his eyes. Marmite. And that's what's so fucking slippery about all this. The deception isn't always malicious. Sometimes it comes from exhaustion, sometimes from uncertainty, sometimes from wanting to help but not having the bandwidth, sometimes from wanting to feel safer, sharper, more articulate. And that's exactly why this issue is difficult. Because most ethical failures in this area won't look like evil, they'll look like convenience wearing a concerned face. He glances at another section of the transcript. Marmite. Then they wander off into memes, propaganda, AI war footage, foreign actors, emotional collapse, the state of the world, Iran, Instagram documentaries and sandwiches, which is honestly the most believable part of the entire conversation. That's just how human beings talk now. 1 minute. What is authentic empathy in a post-human age? Next minute. Also, have you noticed your algorithms full of fake war bollocks? That's not inconsistency. That's modern consciousness. That's what it feels like to be alive in a collapsing information environment. You're trying to discuss ethics while the entire internet sprays psychic asbestos directly into your eyes. Marmite stubs out the cigarette, immediately lights another. Marmite. So where do I land? Simple. AI can assist expression. It can help organize thought. It can audit tone. It can suggest signposting. It can clarify. It can support drafting. What it cannot do, and what people must stop pretending it can do, is replace the moral weight of one human being genuinely showing up for another. That's the line. That's the bloody line. And if you cross it, or blur it, or conceal it, or dress it up in therapeutic jargon and call it innovation, you are not expanding care. You are risking the simulation of care displacing the real thing. And that should terrify anyone with a nervous system. Marmite leans back. A beat. Marmite. Still, there's something oddly hopeful in this transcript. Because despite all the arguing, both of them are actually taking the issue seriously. They're not just going, ooh, AI magic in it. They're wrestling with it. Which means somewhere in the wreckage, there's still an ethical pulse. That matters a lot. Because the future isn't decided by the machines. It's decided by whether humans can still tell the difference between being mirrored and being met. Silence. The CRT buzz deepens. From somewhere off screen, Gillian shouts, Gillian! OS! Who put ChatGPT in the fucking toaster? Marmite closes his eyes. Marmite, that'll be Dylan. Dylan OS. I was running an experiment, fam. Marmite. Of course you fucking were. He stands, grabs the transcript and looks straight down the lens. Marmite. Listen carefully. If your compassion needs a software layer to become legible, fine. Use the software. But don't start confusing legibility with love. One is formatting, the other is presence. And if you lose the difference between those two things, you're not building the future, you're automating loneliness. Cut to black. DPCS. P.